Thank you for taking your drinks and being back in the seat. I'm complimenting you for something you haven't done already, much like the economic conversations we keep having in India, all the achievements we're going to arrive at. So do take your seats. Next up is a conversation that I'm personally very, very excited about, and all of us at Algebra were very, very delighted when Vidya Balan agreed to come here, because in a world which is very, very public, really in the public glare, unlike, say, Abhinav's pursuit of excellence, the tragedies, the victories, the process, all of it is public. And in that world, very dominated by males, very dominated by commerce, comes a woman who completely opens up a new flight path. She doesn't just open up, she breaks ground. She completely overturns the very idea of what it is to be an actress and what it is to be a star. As always, we only know the accomplishments. We see the gloss, we see the success. What lies behind that journey is really where our lessons and the true inspirations lie. Much like Abhinav's journey, which was unique, Vidya's has been extremely unique. She comes from a non-acting family, absolutely no connection with Bollywood. She's a Tambram who started, her first film was with a Tamilian producer and director, and midway through that project, that film fell through. And she's had, I would say, the singular experience of immediately being called a jinx. And she was dropped from 12 films. And then, to overcome that, to come back with 5 straight hits, and then to find the down curve of 5 flops, and to still continue committed to her own vision, is the true story, the incredible story of Vidya Balan. So I'm not going to speak about all the national awards she's won, all the public milestones, because that is stuff we already know. But what does it take to come from that point of entry of such extreme rejection, to continue to have a vision that is uniquely and individually yours, to face the heights of success, the depths of failure, and as I said, public failure, and we'll put that in inverted quotes, and to continue to believe in yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, to understand that incredible journey, please welcome Vidya Balan. Before that, we have a small little capsule which will recall for us the sheer breathtaking canvas of her work. So ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, Mumbai.
कैसी पहेली है ये, कैसी पहेली जिंदगानी। थामा हरों का इसको किसने, हाँ ये तो बहता पानी। कैसी पहेली है ये, कैसी पहेली जिंदगानी। ला 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 ला, zu 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 zu, मिले इसे इसमें नशा, जिसने पिया वो गम में भी हंसा। पल में हंसाए और पल में रुलाए ये कहानी। कैसी पहेली है ये, कैसी पहेली जिंदगानी। थामा हरों का इसको किसने, हाँ ये तो बहता पानी। ओह, कैसी पहेली है ये, कैसी।
समझ में नहीं आ रहा कहां से शुरू करूं। शुरू से शुरू करूंगी तो मां बुरा मान जाएगी। आज की बात की तो आप लोग बुरा मान जाओगे। क्योंकि आज मैं रुकने वाली हूं नहीं। आप लोग भी सोच रहे होंगे कि कहां इस चींटी को पहाड़ पे चढ़ा दिया। कुछ लोगों का नाम उनके काम से होता है, मेरा बदनाम होकर हुआ है.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Vidya Balan.
Thank you, thank you.
You want to be here? Yeah, please. Is that your better angle?
Yeah.
I had this incredible experience of being in a newsroom with Kiran Kher, and we were discussing, I think, Gujarat riots or something. And Kiran refused to start the news program till she had come into the correct position that the camera could catch her correct angle.
Wow.
So, but you need that vanity. Like Abhinav was talking earlier about the one thing he needed to become an Olympic star was hunger, and you need. I suppose people need vanity.
I think as an actor, I definitely need some of that. I need to hold on to some of that because as a character on screen, I have to do away with it most of the time. But outside of the screen,
It's good to have it. Okay, Vidya, let me start unusually at the absolute peak of your success. There was that wonderful dialogue which said that the success of the character in
Yeah.
Dirty Picture came with Badnaam.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And it's fascinating that really that picture marks the absolute, acme of your achievements. So let's start with Dirty Picture. What did that film do for you? You know, personally, psychologically, was it difficult to say yes to that film? And then how did the experience of that film change you?
Firstly, before anything else, a very good evening to all of you. And thank you for having invited me, Shoma. The Dirty Picture wasn't a difficult decision for me at all, as a matter of fact, because as an actor, I knew I could do it. I was waiting for an opportunity like that. But despite that, when Milan Luthria, the director, came to me, I thought he'd knocked on the wrong door. I thought he wanted to go somewhere else and, he got waylaid or something like that. But the sum and substance of it is that he came to me, I loved it. There were people who told me I shouldn't do it because it would go against my image. And that's probably the reason I did it, because I don't believe that an actor can afford an image. And I was thrilled at the prospect of doing it. I gave it my all, and I think it was definitely, as an actor, it was a landmark. If, I think there I ended up unshackling myself. I ended up freeing myself. And that was really very, very precious and priceless. I never thought when I took up the film that that is what the Dirty Picture would end up doing for me. But it did. One was, body consciousness. I think with that film, I completely, felt liberated of any sort of body image limitations. In my mind, it was about what I could do with the body and not just how the body looked. I was at my biggest best at that time. I had put on weight. And I remember people telling me that I hadn't looked sexier than I did in that film until the Dirty Picture. So I think that, and then just, I've always felt a little uncomfortable about telling a story which takes you down, a path which is where you have to deal with hard truths. I think that was the first time that I realized that I was willing to embrace the dark side. And that was another very liberating experience. I remember initially I kept telling the director, no, she should not commit suicide. You know, I don't agree with that at all. Even though it was a semi-biopic on Silk Smitha, who did end up taking her own life, I still felt that we should change the end because I wanted some hope for her. But, you know, as we started doing the film, I started realizing why she had to. Because if she lived on her own terms, she was going to die on her own terms. So, yeah, it was the most liberating experience for me as an actor.
You know, so Vidya, you've
Thank you. Thank you.
Vidya, it's interesting that you spoke of the body, and I didn't intend to come to that conversation so quickly, but since you've spoken of it, it's fascinating. You know, like I said, you've opened up so many new ways of thinking in this industry. And the one thing that is always required of a woman, actually required of all of us women, is to be some insane, you know, body figure, which is very often depleting to ourselves. And like you said, you've had a large body type. Did you have trouble with that? Did you have trouble with coming to terms with your own body, your own sense of beauty? Or were you uncomfortable and at war with yourself for a long time?
For the longest time until the dirty picture, I think I kept rejecting my body, you know. I was a fat child growing up, and at home I was just made to feel beautiful. When I stepped out, I think, you know, in school, friends begin to tease you in a very innocent way, and then at some point, it begins to bother you, and more importantly in your teens, when you want attention from that particular boy who's probably giving it to a thinner girl, and you feel that you know, your body is, your weight is the only reason he's not looking in your direction. So I was in constant battle with my body. I would go through crash diets trying to lose weight. I would kill myself at the gym, but the weight would come back. And after battling my body for the longest time, I think finally at around the dirty picture, I said, you know, I can do this for the rest of my life. I can live in hate, hating the very space that I occupy. Or then, you know, I can make peace with it and carry on with life and just be a happier person, because most of my issues had to do with the body. Confidence, you know, feelings of unworthiness, feelings of rejection, everything came back to the body. And I said, you know, if I put on weight for this role and people are telling me that I looked my desirable best in that film, and they're lauding me for, you know, celebrating my my tires, because there were portions in the film where, you know, I was bursting at the seams. I said, then this really has happened to me for a reason. So I stopped judging my body. And also because I realized I have the thinnest of friends, and they're still trying to be thinner. So there's no end to this. It's crazy, you know, you're constantly saying, today I was taking a picture with an RJ. I was doing interviews for a film that's releasing on the 17th of this month, and here up in the room, he, when, you know, he asked one of his team members to take a picture, and he said, "Ye mota to nahi dikh raha ho na?" And I just stopped at him and I said, you know, are you kidding me? Because he's stickly thin. So there is no end to this. So I realized I'm going to make peace with my body. And I can't begin to tell you, Shoma, how so many things began to fall in place for me post that.
Well said.
I'm so grateful for the dirty picture, for that reason more than anything else. I have girls walking up to me and saying, you know, thanks to you and the dirty picture, I'm comfortable with my love handles now. And I'm like,
and they're called love handles for a reason.
And I keep saying, the more there is of you, the more there is to love. So you must
I'm going to
embrace
take your
every bit
mantra
of
so
it.
seriously now.
You must, most definitely. And you know, I'm sorry, I tend to have verbal diarrhea, but especially when we're talking about the body. But being fat, so-called fat, does not make me feel any differently, does not make me feel any less desirable or desire. So I don't know why people, you know, people are so judgmental towards a larger frame, a bigger body. I think it has nothing, feeling sexy, looking sexy, for yourself more than for anything else, has nothing to do with the body. It's what you can do with that body, and trust me.
You can do a lot. Well said. Here, Vidya. I think we really need a clap for that, you know.
Thank you.
Earlier, Vidya has spoken about how she felt small in her bigness.
Bigness.
And today you're saying the more there is, the more there is
There-
to love. So
absolutely.
that's just the best kind of shift of slogan that there
Yes,
can be.
absolutely.
So, Vidya, then let me take
No,
you back.
not that the trollers let me forget for a moment that I'm a big girl. You know, just today I was at the airport, and there are some pictures, obviously, you get clicked everywhere today. I just got network on my phone. I've not had network all day for some reason. So the first picture I click on says fatso.
Well, the new idea is to embrace that.
No, absolutely. I'm saying you're just telling me I'm big. I'm bigger than you. You small little thing.
I love the phrase you just used, you know, that I'm a big girl.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that has
yeah.
many connotations.
Yeah,
you know,
that's true.
Big girl. So let me take you now back to your beginning, Vidya. I just shared with the audience this absolutely astounding thing that you were rejected in 12 films when you began, you know. You're not from a film family. How the hell do you overcome a bump like that? And where did that conviction come that you wanted to be an actress, you know?
I think from hunger, from I've not wanted to do anything else in life. So I kept asking myself, if not this, then what? So of course I was doing my BA simultaneously, and I enrolled myself for MA. And as a matter of fact, I even completed it whilst all this was happening. Because I said, okay, I'll at least have a backup plan. I'll get a job as something somewhere. You know, it's another thing I actually enjoyed, sociology, so that helped. But you know, I did the first film and it went off well, and suddenly there was a barrage of offers. And I obviously, these were names I had heard all my life in Malayalam cinema, and I was so excited. I thought, oh my God, now, you know, here I come, the lady Amitabh Bachchan of Malayalam cinema or something like that. So I went there to conquer the world, and suddenly, you know, there's a problem between the director and the lead actor, and the film falls through. And the next thing you know is all those people who had signed, so there was no signing, luckily for them. There was no real signing, it was a verbal commitment. So all those people started replacing me in films, and my mom those days, because you know, I was making my debut in Malayalam, had begun to subscribe to Malayalam magazines, and my parents read Malayalam. So she would notice that this film with the same director and actor had already started shooting, but with another actor, female actor. And you know, one by one, it was like,
So what helped you get out of that?
I think this, like I said, I didn't know what else I could do. So there would be times when there was a Sai Baba Mandir close to my house in Chembur, in Mumbai. And I would go there and I would cry and I'd say, you know, why did you dangle the carrot in front of me if you weren't going to give it to me? But then the next morning, I'd wake up feeling like, okay, I can brave it another day. So there was a Tamil film that I started shooting for, where I got replaced, and they called me ugly, and they said all sorts of things. And I don't know why, you know, to this date, it baffles me how everything was going wrong at the same time. You know, but I guess for a reason, because better things were in store. And for me to know what I'm really capable of, how passionate I am. My sister would send me, she was in Bangalore at the time, and she would call me and say, do you know Tabu's first film took 6 years to release? You know, Madhuri Dixit's first film was a flop, and the same stories again and again. Mr. Bachchan had 11 flops before he got his big break. And I'd be like, you know, how many
I'm in
times
the big
are
league.
you gonna
I'm in the big league.
No, but you know, I was actually I would tell her that, you know, I don't want to hear any of this anymore. I'm not them. But I think somewhere it would encourage me to go on. Yeah.
So, you know, like I said, it's astounding that you overcame that. But what's fascinating then is that you shot to the peak, from that absolute Mariana Trench, you go right up, and you had 5 great hits. What did that do for you, And also, again, I'd like to share with the audience that talk about being rejected by 12 films. When she got picked to do Parinita, Vidhu Vinod Chopra made her do 60 screen tests. 60 screen tests
Okay,
before she was picked.
That number keeps changing. I don't know whether
Sorry.
no, it's not your fault, because I don't know whether Wikipedia or IMDb is to blame. But every time I hear a new number, someone says 40, someone says 17, someone
was
says
it?
60. But I don't remember the number, but I just remember I was tested over a period of a few months. And finally, of course, I got the film. But that's also an interesting story, because the last test that I did, I was fed up because I didn't know what he was really testing. Pradeep Sarkar, the director, wanted me in the film, and Vinod Chopra wanted an established star, understandably so. But he agreed to test me, and every week, Dada, Pradeep Sarkar would come back and tell me, okay, we need to do one more test. Finally, in what turned out to be the definitive test, the cinematographer, Binod Pradhan, came to me and said, I've shot so many ad films with you, and your sheer joy in front of the camera, but ever since you've started testing for this film, your eyes, lack that spark. He said, forget about it. If you get this film, you get it. If you don't, you don't. But you have a long way as an actor. It did something to me, So when I had to turn towards the camera, and which is also the first shot in the film Parinita, my entry shot. So I turned towards the camera, and I think when I turned, there was so much anger. There was, I think I was abusing Vinod Chopra. And he's so sharp that when he saw the test, he actually called me and said, I know you were abusing me, but I hand it to you. You are my Parinita. So that's how it, and then of course there were one hit after the other, and it kept, I kept going from strength to strength.
So what did that success do to you? Did that change you? Did it make you, feel a kind of power center, or did it have a reverse impact on you?
I think it made me a bit insecure. I came in as a very self-assured person. And then suddenly what had begun to happen is that I wasn't used to, people giving me advice. I grew up in a family where I was always told, do what you feel is right. And suddenly here, I had people advising me, and they said all sorts of things. And then they tell me that, you came in as a woman, you played a very strong emotional, you played a very strong emotional part. But now you should play the girl, because if you want your career to last long, because the shelf life of an actress is very short, then you must, make yourself a girl. I was born a woman, I'm Capricorn. So what ended up happening is I failed miserably at being a girl. And I came in actually at the age of 26. And anyway, I wasn't a girl anymore. And I was very uncomfortable, just playing roles that had no substance, I guess. So grudgingly, I'd do them, and then they turned out very badly. I got slapped around, and then finally, finally sense prevailed. Better sense prevailed, and I decided that I'm going to change the course of my career with the choices I made.
So we were talking about how you've broken new ground for women, Vidya. So I wanted to understand, just as a woman, the fact that now you could lead the films. These were women-centric films. Like you said, you've said elsewhere that you were being called the Shiro, the fourth Khan. Yeah. All of that should have given you a great sense of power. But I've heard you say to some people that it actually, you just said it made you insecure, but also that you were very embarrassed about having power. Can you talk to us about that anomaly?
Yeah. So, like I was telling you, I began to do the kind of films I wanted to be doing truly. I was being authentic, and I chose to do films like Paya Nishkya, No One Killed Jessica, Dirty Picture, Kahani, and then I was seeing critical commercial success. With the Dirty Picture, I got my film opened at a 10 crore first day. So suddenly people began to say, oh God, she's a Shiro, and all sorts of things. But I think as a woman, and as much as I hate to admit it, we are apologetic about success. we begin to feel like, I don't know why I've not been able to, maybe it's the deep conditioning that runs so deep that you're not able to get rid of it. But I did begin to feel like, no, I don't want this. This is too much, you know. It's also the middle class me. I thought it was too much fame, it was too much money, it was too much success. But as a woman, I think I was uncomfortable with being in a powerful position. So when I worked with people, going forward in films, I remember I was very conscious whenever I had to make a suggestion. I always felt that people will feel maybe, you know, I'd gotten too big for my boots.
Arrogant and yeah.
Too arrogant, like I knew it all. So I was being cautious, so much so that a lot of times I wouldn't be assertive or voice my concerns openly and truthfully and honestly. And then later, when I saw some of those films, I know that that feedback could have made a difference. Not to say they could have salvaged those films or anything of the sort or changed the fate of those films, but I know there were some core issues that should have been addressed and fixed, which I had seen, but I was too scared to address.
So you were afraid of not being liked? You
Yeah,
thought,
I think so. I think so. Yeah, I thought I'd probably be seen as bossy or something like that.
well, let me move to another film, Vidya, which seems to speak very, you know, it didn't do well in the box office, but when one sees you perform in it, you again seem to be playing out some inner demons in that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was the film Begum Jaan, you know?
Yeah.
So like you said, Dirty Picture worked out your relationship with your body. What did Begum Jaan do for you as a woman actor?
It let me abuse openly. Because, you know, there was a lot of anger in me. I think, I've always been uncomfortable about expressing anger. One, I think as a girl, again, it's not the kind of atmosphere I grew up in, you know, because we were, both my sister and me, we were just two girls. So my parents gave us every freedom. But somehow the way I decoded, you know, societal instructions was that women shouldn't express their anger. Women could be vulnerable, they could be soft. I'm a bit unsure whether it was just a woman or also a female actor, because I was constantly the public glare. It was something I was not used to. I felt I was being watched. So I was all the more cautious about how I was letting other people read my feelings. So I think I went through a phase of absolute confusion, but the anger was building up in me, you know. And I always feel that my choices reflect my state of mind, even before I consciously know it. So that's how Begum Jaan, I said yes to a film like Begum Jaan, which really gave vent to my angst as a woman.
And did it change your relationship with power? Because Begum Jaan is...
I actually think it did. I think slowly but surely, you know, I have begun to understand that it's not wrong to be powerful, that you should celebrate your power, that I have every right to be powerful as a woman. And if I am powerful, it would be absolutely foolish of me to reject that because I'm a woman. Because I think it's not womanly to be powerful. So I think over time, you know, my films always end up changing me. Or maybe my films are a response to the change happening within me. I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg.
So is Siddharth Roy Kapoor undergoing a transformation now, having met a powerful woman?
I think he doesn't know who his wife is. Every few months, she's different. If you ask me, it would be exciting to be with someone different every few months. But I think he's got, you know, a great temperament. And it helps that he's a producer and he's handled actors before. So he knows, you know, he knows what I'm going through as an actor. But I talk, I have verbal diarrhea. I share everything I'm thinking, I'm feeling. So that actually, I think, helps him get perspective on why I'm very angsty sometimes and why I'm so accommodating sometimes.
So this is a question for all the men in the audience,
Yeah.
you know, that is Siddharth accommodative of your desire to talk?
Oh, I don't think he has a choice. I actually think that's, I don't appreciate that question. If he chooses to be with me, he's with me. You know, and poor thing, I give him very little chance to talk, I think. But yeah, I think the reason I'm with him is because he just lets me be as much as I just let him be.
No, in fact, that's very interesting you said that, Vidya, because many people who come from the same industry and are in a very close relationship uh, can have a lot of, tension and dynamic that needs to be worked out. So did you have to go through that arc? I'm asking really as a kind of life lesson for everyone else, that was there a period of having to arrive at that equilibrium of power within the relationship, or was he an evolved man from word go?
No,
And notice I didn't say that you had to evolve.
no, I think we are constantly learning and growing, thankfully together. So that's a good thing. And I think communication has helped. I've been married 5 years now, and I can see how honest communication really helps. I, I remember I would get touchy about little things when we'd just gotten married. For example, if someone wrote Mr. and Mrs. Siddharth Roy Kapoor, and it was someone who knew me, it would anger me.
Piss the shit out of you. Say it.
It would, because I'm like, you know me from before you know Siddharth. I can still understand if it's a colleague of his who doesn't know me and chooses to refer to me as his wife. That's absolutely fine. But if you know me, then you use my name. And I firstly have a problem with calling someone Mrs. You never know the marital status of a man when you refer to him as a Mr. So, it's a giveaway. I'm not sure I want that at all times. If the Idris Elba was in the room, then definitely not. But I do think that, I would get really angry that a lot of these little things had begun to happen. And I thought that was very disrespectful because I'm an individual. I'm not just subsumed. My identity is not subsumed under someone else's. And I think he understood that that did not mean that, I love him less or care for him less. But he understood, I guess he's had a working mother. His mother has been a model, a dancer, and she's, she was extremely successful herself. So I think it helped that he was coming from that space and therefore understood me and didn't, it didn't become a struggle for him. He didn't think that, oh my God, what is a big deal about being referred to as Mrs. Every wife is referred to as Mrs. or something.
Yeah.
We didn't have those issues to deal with.
So we've discussed your rejection, then the kind of, riding the waves of success and how complicated that was. I'm going to come to that spate of failures that you had, Vidya. I don't want to call them failures, box office failures. But before that, I wanted to, we so glibly talk of how you've broken new ground for women and how you're this catalyst in Bollywood. What do you feel about that? How do you relate to some of the other women in the industry, the choices they make? And when you assess yourself, what do you think your journey has meant for women in Bollywood?
I could never do the stereotypical heroine role. I tried my hand at it and failed miserably.
In Hey Baby?
Yeah, Hey Baby, Kismat
Did you
Connection.
enjoy it? Did you enjoy it?
No, I didn't at all. And I think I sleepwalked through those films, and you can see that, So even though the films did well, I really got heavily criticized for those two films. But I'm very glad for those films because they brought perspective. But I don't grudge anyone who does those kind of films. I realized through, all the criticism that I'd received that that also requires effort, that also requires talent, you know, that also requires so many things. And I developed a new respect for people who worked in those kind of films, but I realized it's not for
You're
me.
not being politically correct.
No, 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 not at all. Not at all. I also think that, you know, I started doing the kind of films I wanted to do, and I didn't intend to break ground or shatter the glass ceiling. I was just following my instinct, and I keep telling people this, that, you know, when they ask me, how do you feel, because you brought in this trend of female-centric films. Firstly, I want to say that I'm really sorry to burst your bubble. It's not a trend, it's here to stay. And secondly, you know, I'm at the center of my universe, and I am female, so I only choose stories where the woman is at the center of those films, of the films, of the stories. And it's a great time for female actors, because we're getting enough opportunities, because I'm not just one person saying this. All around me, you know, more and more of us are realizing that we are at the center of our universe, and that's what's finding reflection on screen. You know, so those films are doing well. I'm very glad to note that more people are investing in those films. More female actors are doing those films. Initially, at the time of the Dirty Picture and Kahani, there was no one else doing it, and people actually warned me. They said, you know, आप तो art film route में जा रही हैं. And then with the commercial success that I saw, and then subsequently other female actors' films saw, people started realizing that a female-centric film need not have to be alternate. It can be absolutely mainstream.
But in terms of scale, you know, you said 10 crore and all of that. It's still distressing that just in terms of pure commercial success, it's still not hitting those 200, 300 crore marks, right?
Yeah, but at least, you know, we have 10 films being made a year compared to no films. So we'll catch up. You know, we women, I think, are very good at catching up, and
we have
before you know
70,000 years of genetic coding to catch up on.
Exactly. But we are fast. I'd like to believe that the change is underway.
And is it interesting that, in fact, some of the new women-centric scripts, as we are calling them, are not about just Sati Savitris and, you know?
Absolutely. Which is what I loved about the Dirty Picture. You know, because she was not a hero in that sense. But, you know, her story was extremely interesting. And everyone has a story, and everyone's an interesting story deserves to be told. You know, I've just done a film called Tumhari Sulu, which again is about a homemaker who lands herself a job as a late night RJ. And she's happy being a homemaker. And you know, a few years ago, I hate the term housewives, but I had judged homemakers, and I felt like, you know, why can't they do? I would keep telling my mom, you know, why don't you take up a job? Now we've grown up. And I didn't appreciate that it was her choice. I think that's what empowerment is about. It's about your choice. If you want to sit at home, you sit at home. If you want to go out and work, you go out and work. You conquer the world whichever way
It works for you.
it works for you. So
So give us a teaser from Tumhari Sulu. Do us a RJ line. You know?
Oh God.
Let us have a premiere moment right now.
You know, so she does a late night show, so those shows are slightly intimate and sultry, and so this is how Sulu opens her shows. She says, "Hello, आपकी रातों को जगाने, आपके सपनों को सजाने, मैं सुलू। दिल के बटन से फोन लगाइए और मेरे से बात करिए, करेंगे ना?"
I've been threatening to arrive at your spate of box office failures, but before that, this relationship with sexuality, you know, that's again, so one, you've spoken of the physical body and you know, enabling yourself, but what about sexuality, Vidya? You know, again, we saw some of the steamy scenes you've done, delightful ones. My sons were watching that video, and they were like, "Mama, where are all these hot films?" So Was that difficult for you to shoot in front of the average Indian male, shoot scenes like that? Did you have to again wrestle with the kind of coding we have on sexuality, or was that just intrinsic to you to
You
be
know,
the sexy woman?
no, I think in that sense, in front of the camera, thankfully for me, it's a blessing. I've always been absolutely comfortable doing any and everything. As a matter of fact, I remember a few years ago, I did an interview with someone who kept trying to shame me, saying, you know, पर आपने तो इस तरह की फिल्में की हैं. I said, आप अपने घर में करते हो, मैं कैमरा के सामने कर रही हूँ, क्या प्रॉब्लम है? So, you know, I'm not chewy-mooey about these things. If you expect me to be chewy-mooey because I'm a woman, then too bad, you know. I've enjoyed, those scenes are not easy only because there's actually no pleasure. They're telling you, you know, just you have to tilt your neck a little more, arch your back a little more so it looks cinematic. But, so, and, you know, you're suddenly getting intimate with a stranger and there's no, it's most of the time.
Let me ask you an interesting question.
Yeah.
Of all the strangers, which was the best stranger to do it with?
Oh wow.
You have a reputation. Come on, come on. I'll give you courage. I asked this question to Sharmila Tagore, and she did say that when she had to do it with Shashi Tharoor. I did not say that. I did not say that.
Shashi Kapoor.
Yeah. Shashi's clearly playing large on my mind. Well, with Shashi Kapoor, that she was supposed to drive a car and she kind of pressed the accelerator instead of the brake because her heart was beating so fast. So come on, you can make a choice.
Oh my God. I think it was. Arshad Varsi, I think.
Oh. Imran Hashmi is slitting his wrist right
No,
now.
no, no. I'll tell you why. Because Imran
And Nasiruddin has jumped off the cliff.
no, no, no. But Imran and I hadn't even spoken to each other. Can you imagine how that is? And you're going onto a set and you're expected to kiss or, you know. But Arshad and I were friends. We'd done Lage Raho Munna Bhai before, so that helped. You know, and after every take, he'd come and kiss me on my forehead. And I actually turned to him and I said, I feel like doing the same to you. Don't think that I'm in, you know, I need to be handled because I'm a woman. I've chosen to be an actor. You know, I cry and I feel as naked in front of people on a set as I do when I'm doing an intimate scene. For me as an actor, it's not very different, you know. Yeah.
I love that. This is going to be my takeaway for the evening, that Arshad Vasi was coming to comfort her with compassionate kisses on the forehead, and you were wanting to kiss him back as compassionately. Okay. So now let me come to that spate of, you know, as I said, my God, that's a real drop. What did that feel like, you know, and how did that change you? The fact that the last 4 or 5 films you've done with conviction, but people haven't responded to it.
You know, when Ghanchakar released, which was my first release after the 5 hits, after being proclaimed a shiro and all that, and when it didn't do well, I kept saying, no, you know, there's some problem. Maybe there's a cricket match going on. Maybe it's something else. People can't not go to the theater to watch my film. You know, they've given me so much love over the past 5 years, whatever. And then suddenly it hit me, and I think I didn't know how to deal with it. It was also a film that Siddharth was producing. He was heading UTV at that time, and it was produced by UTV, and I was in the film, and I kept feeling like I had let him down because we had just gotten married. It was our first release. And I remember feeling really guilty, and he kept saying, if you failed me, so have I failed you. But you know, it wasn't somehow because, you know, invariably success gets seen in terms of an actor's or gets defined in terms of an actor's ability to pull audiences into theaters. I was feeling like I let him down, and at that time I took a decision that we won't work together ever again because I can't go through that emotional turmoil. Then, Shaadi Ke Side Effects released, and then Bobby Jasus did, and then Hamari Adhuri Kahani did. And I think something was breaking in me every time I had a release, because thankfully on set, I don't think of whether the previous film worked or whether this film will work. But when you're promoting and suddenly people tell you that, oh my God, it's such a great trailer, we can't wait to see it. And, I'm wondering what went wrong between them liking the trailer and not ending up in the theaters. It's heartbreaking, it's devastating. But when I stepped out for events, appearances, interviews with the media, everyone only showered me with love. I felt so grateful for it. I said, I was probably meant to go through this phase for me to realize that when a film doesn't work, we feel lesser, but it's not that the love of the audiences changes. They're quite accepting, they're quite, they embrace you either way once they like you. And they keep giving you chances, and I don't know anything else to do, so I keep going from film to film, hoping the next one will work. The next one is on the 17th of November. I'm hoping all of you will go and watch it.
Thank you very, very much, Vidya.
Thank you.
We've run out of time, but it's been a fascinating conversation. And, she spoke about when Adhuri Kahani didn't work. And I think you called up Mahesh Bhatt, and she said she broke down and cried and cried and cried. But a little bit like what Abhinav said, it released you. And she said she became detached from the outcome of it, but really just got engaged with the process of it. And it's fascinating to know that two highly successful, highly celebrated people have had that trajectory of bringing back just the purity of the process and the engagement with your first love rather than the outcome. So thank you very, very much, Vidya.
Thank you. Thank you yet
much
again.
for being with us.
I enjoyed myself. Thank you.